That coat doesn't belong here." The words weren't whispered behind closed doors. They rang out clear, sharp, in the middle of the crystalline grand hall of the Val d'Orion Prestige Lodge, the venue for the Snow Gala of the century, an event reserved for the world's most elite. The girl had just stepped through the main entrance. She hadn't even taken off her knit hat. Her boots hadn't yet touched the gold-dusted snow carpet, and already she had become the target of the entire room. Claire Monroe, 26, a name no one remembered in a world where no one ever wore the same outfit twice. The white coat she wore had soft wrinkles along the sleeves. The hem was slightly smudged with snow. Her knit hat had no label clearly handmade. Her skates, the edges were worn down and the paint chipped, and in a place where even a single glove costs over $1,000 and every breath smells faintly of Hermes perfume. Claire stood like a glitch in an otherwise flawless symphony. "She's probably staff. Took a wrong turn. Wrong door, sweetheart. This is a gala for real people, not a cosplay event." The laughter wasn't loud, but it thundered inside her chest. Phones lifted. Cameras scanned her, like invisible eyes, transmitting judgment across the globe in real time. Claire didn't flinch. She took a quiet breath, adjusted her hood, and walked forward, as if she hadn't heard a thing. Or maybe, as if she were used to being misunderstood. She didn't need to act strong, because strength had been her default ever since the world insisted she didn't belong. What none of them knew, none of those laughing, perfectly tailored strangers, was that the most powerful man in the room was standing on the upper balcony, dressed as a catering staff, eyes locked on her, and every insult thrown her way felt like a knife twisting in his chest. Jason Marchand, tech billionaire founder of Marchand Global, wasn't there to celebrate. He was there to observe the daughter he once failed to protect. Somewhere in the hall, a Stradivarius violin still played softly, but no one was listening to the music anymore. Every gaze had shifted away from the orchestra, away from the glittering chandeliers, and locked on to the woman whose name wasn't on the elite guest list, who wasn't accompanied by a single notable figure. No escort, no flowing Versace gown. Just a handmade knit hat and a gaze that made no apology for existing. Claire Monroe. I thought that was an organic food brand. Or maybe she's here to deliver something. Between sarcastic winks and whispers spoken just loudly enough to sting, but still pass. As casual Claire stood still unmoved, as though none of it concerned her. Only Jason, watching from the shadows of the mezzanine floor, knew what was truly happening and why his daughter once again had to endure public humiliation at the hands of those who thought their laughter cost nothing. 7 years ago, Claire had been the golden hope of the U.S. national ski team, a girl with amber eyes and legs that were born to fly across snow. But just weeks before the Olympic qualifiers, a doping allegation surfaced, and from the National Sports Federation, chaired for 12 years by Graham Langley, father of Victoria Langley. The accusation hit like a stab in the back. No hearing, no right to respond. The press devoured the story. Claire vanished from the face of competitive sports, and in that silence, no one knew she had lost something even more vital than reputation, her identity. Jason had once loved Claire's mother, a brief, intense love. But when Claire was born, he was never told. The woman left quietly, taking their daughter and a promise never to interfere in his life. That promise held until she died in a tragic accident in the Rockies, and a handwritten letter was discovered in her suitcase. "She's your child, and she needs the protection I can't give her forever." Jason spent 3 years searching for Claire, and now having found her, he didn't step forward as a father. He came as a nameless server at the gala to witness with his own eyes how the world treated the one person who now meant everything to him. Claire didn't know the truth, but her eyes now glowed with a familiar fire, the very same fire Jason had once seen in her mother, walking out of a match with bloody knuckles and a smile so bright it dared the world to try and beat her down again. Claire was the embodiment of that legacy, an unnamed symbol being crushed by a world that still believed honor could be measured by a credit limit. If you came here to prove something, then please don't just stand there. The voice cut through the hall like a finely honed blade, soft but icy enough to chill the bones. Victoria Langley, draped in a shimmering white shearling gown that sparkled like snow, stood just a few steps away from Claire. In her hand, an expensive champagne glass. In her eyes, a sneer poured thick with disdain, like alcohol, ready to ignite. I challenge you to ski down the black vortex right now. If you win, I'll donate $5 million to any charity you choose. But if you lose, you will kneel in the middle of the Snow Plaza, take off your gloves, and tell the press you're not worthy of Jason Marchand. The room held its breath for one sharp second. Human eyes, camera lenses, eyes of the victors, and eyes waiting for someone to fall. Jason remained on the upper floor, his hand tightening around the serving tray, the only outward sign of a storm within. She didn't know who he was yet, and he was forcing himself to believe in the strength of blood and the memory burning in her heart. Claire looked at Victoria, said nothing. She simply stepped forward, calmly removing her thick gloves, her gaze never leaving the woman before her. I accept. Her voice was steady, but the fire beneath it could melt the Alps. But if I win, not just you, but every single person who mocked me tonight will leave this resort and never speak my name again. A wave of tension surged through the ballroom. Some laughed, some doubted, some hit live on their phones the moment Claire turned and walked toward the ski lift. A perfect bet, Victoria whispered, smiling, like she already held the reins, luring a doe into a snare. Because she had secretly ordered modifications to the black vortex earlier that morning. A technician had been bribed, black ice added to turn 3 left, unreported in the system. No one survives that turn unless they know it's there. Claire didn't know, but in her eyes, there was a terrifying calm, as if knowing didn't matter. She simply turned back and left one last sentence hanging in the air. I didn't come here to win. I came here so I'd never have to bow my head again. When Claire entered the athletes' changing room, no one greeted her. No technical team, no coach, no sponsor logos stitched onto her jacket. Just a lone woman quietly dressing in the shadowy corner, wrapping her worn skates in a frayed wool scarf. She opened her backpack and pulled out a faded piece of paper folded in 4s. The ink had blurred over time, but the pen strokes were still firm, decisive. You don't have to be a champion for your parents to be proud. Just don't ever let someone else decide your worth. Her mother's handwriting. The woman who died in a skating accident when Claire was 19. She had once been the golden hope, not because of where she came from, but because of who she was. Claire had broken the junior world speed record, been invited to friendly competitions in Japan, Austria, and Norway. And then, an anonymous press conference with forged doping test results destroyed it all. No investigation, no apology. Her name was erased from the Olympic roster overnight. Magazines stopped mentioning her. Friends turned away. Sponsors cut ties. No one knew that the man behind the entire collapse was Victoria Langley's father, who rigged the outcome to clear a golden path for his daughter. Claire lost everything. She left the team, the city, the spotlight. She worked at a small bakery in Colorado. By day, she served customers. By night, she carved makeshift ski runs from backyard snow training alone under streetlights. No reporters, no audience, just one silent promise in her heart. One day, I won't apologize for who I used to be. Today at Val d'Orion, this wasn't her first time standing before a mountain, but it was the first time the world would have to see her with their own eyes. No headlines, no lies. On her way out of the locker room, she paused. A janitor around 60 stood quietly in the corner, his eyes red-rimmed. "Are you Claire Monroe?" Claire nodded. The man stammered, "I watched you compete at Lake Tahoe when you were 18. You're the reason my daughter took up skiing. Today, thank you for coming back." Claire smiled, softly, not with pride, but with a steadiness so solid, even silence didn't dare stand in her way. And then she stepped outside. The afternoon sun kissed her knit hat. The wind caught her coat like a banner. At the summit of Black Vortex, the slope that once devoured champions, Claire Monroe was climbing as if it had been waiting, just for her return. The sky above Val d'Orion was a cold glass blue. The late afternoon sun cast golden light across the slope of Black Vortex like a spotlight shining on the lead in a story too long left untold. Claire stood at the summit. Beneath her feet lay Black Vortex, a course secretly rigged, laced with the traps Victoria had laid in advance. Hidden black ice at every turn. Uneven terrain, midway down jagged stones, lurking beneath a deceptive layer of snow. Every inch of it was designed to make her fall. But Victoria had forgotten one thing: Claire no longer feared falling. When the starting whistle blew, she launched downward like a blade through ice. Her plain white jacket snapped in the wind. Her worn knit hat bobbed gently. No sponsor logos adorned her, yet every motion she made was a living advertisement for one thing: real skill. First turn, the black ice appeared out of nowhere. The entire grandstand held its breath. Claire didn't slow down. She dropped her center of gravity, leaned in hard, and executed an eagle twist, a maneuver once dismissed as too dangerous for public demonstration. She landed on one foot, skimmed past the edge of a ravine, and slid out clean, as if the ice itself had stepped aside to let her pass. My God, she knew it was there, one coach blurted out. No, she didn't. She just prepared for the worst possible outcome. The crowd that once laughed now sat frozen like statues. The same phones that had recorded her being mocked now trembled, capturing a legend being born in real time. Second turn, the uneven terrain. Claire didn't dodge. She charged through it. Ice shattered. Powder exploded like fireworks. One deep crouch, then she launched into a double spiral, mid-air landing tip first and gliding forward like a dancer waltzing on frozen water. International commentators fell silent. Online, the hashtag #WhoIsSheSoared to global trending. Number 1. From New York to Seoul, dinner tables fell quiet as people watched a girl with no brand, no backing, dismantling every assumption with the power of her own two legs. And on the upper tier of the grandstand, Jason Marchand didn't live stream. He didn't speak. He just watched, eyes locked. And something inside him fell. Not snow, but a weight of pride he had carried for nearly a decade. Claire wasn't just skiing. She was reclaiming her name, with snow, with blood, and with every moment she had once kept silent while the world tried to define who she was. Final turn. Wind was slicing across her face. The heartbeat of the entire world paused. Claire surged through the deadly angled slope, the very spot where dozens of athletes had once crashed and broken bones. But she wasn't afraid. She didn't ski like someone trying to win. She skied like someone with nothing left to lose. 1 minute 46, 147, 1472. New record. The final horn blared just as she cut across the finish line, leaving a razor-sharp streak in the snow, and all of Val d'Orion fell silent. 1 minute 47. 2 seconds the fastest time ever recorded on Black Vortex. Not just a broken record. She obliterated it. In the stands, Victoria Langley turned pale, her hands clutching the fur trim that no longer kept her warm. A livestream phone slipped from someone's hand into the snow. The eyes that once watched Claire with ridicule now looked at her with a respect they couldn't hide, no matter how hard they tried. From the second-floor balcony, Jason Marchand stepped forward. No more serving tray. No more disguise. He walked directly toward his daughter through the stunned silence of the elite. Claire stood at the microphone. The wind tugged gently at her old coat. Her amber eyes stared straight into a global camera lens. 7 years ago, I was erased from the Olympic team by a doping allegation that never existed. It was manufactured by the father of the woman who challenged me today. But today, I don't need a medal. I just needed the world to see that the truth can be buried, but it never dies. The plaza erupted. Jason reached for her hand. Claire Monroe is my daughter, and I am proud of her, not for today's record, but because she survived 7 years without ever backing down. He turned toward the cameras, his voice clear like a corporate decree from a courtroom, effective immediately. Marchand Global is pulling all capital from Langley Bank and every company involved in manipulating national sports results. From this moment, Victoria Langley is permanently banned from all resorts organizations and systems under my control. Victoria collapsed into the snow, her once pristine white dress stained and exposed under the glare of flashbulbs, no longer glorified by the spotlight but laid bare by it. Those who once laughed bowed their heads. Those who once filmed began deleting clips. Claire said nothing more. She simply placed a hand over her heart and bowed her head, a silent thank you to her mother, to her adoptive father, to a youth she had lost but never let define her. And then she turned her back and left the world behind. Victoria Langley didn't fall because of Claire's dissent. She fell because for the first time in her life, the world no longer believed in her. After Jason Marchand publicly announced the complete withdrawal of capital from Langley Bank and issued a lifetime ban on Victoria and her entire lineage from all resorts and events under his control, the collapse came fast, like a body hitting hidden black ice. Financial empires that once upheld the Langley name scattered overnight. Stock prices plunged without mercy. Even the gilded party invitations that used to arrive at Victoria's door as if royalty were a birthright vanished without a trace. But Victoria wasn't the only one who paid the price. Ethan Caldwell, son of a venture capital mogul, the one who once said Claire looked like a lost IKEA doll, was cut from his father's business ecosystem within the hour. Laia Voss, a top-tier model who had live-streamed a sneer calling Claire the budget Cinderella, had her luxury brand contracts terminated the moment that video resurfaced. The people who once flanked Victoria now drifted away like strangers. The smirks that once taunted Claire melted like frost beneath the first blade of sunlight. On social media, the video of Claire slicing through Black Vortex like a mythic warrior spread with blistering speed. Within 48 hours, it surpassed 100 million views. Hundreds of thousands of comments called her name not tied to a brand, but to respect. Hashtags like "She Did Not Crash" and "Claire Monroe Reclaimed" flooded every platform. And then in the midst of that storm, something no one expected happened. A young girl in a Val d'Orion Academy uniform, stepped into the center of the Snow Plaza, phone in hand, eyes red from tears. Her voice trembled, but didn't break. "I laughed when they humiliated you, not because I believed it, but because I was scared. Scared that if I spoke up, I'd lose my chance. But now I understand silence is a form of betrayal too." She bowed to Claire. One clap broke the silence, then two, then 10, until the entire Snow Plaza erupted in applause, not for victory, but for reckoning, for truth. A silver-haired coach stepped forward trembling, holding a worn-out scoring ledger from a friendly competition 7 years ago, the day Claire shattered the junior record with nothing but second-hand skates and no sponsors. He took the mic, voice hoarse. "You didn't just break a record today. You shattered the silence we were all complicit in." And somewhere in that sea of people, Jason Marchand, the man who had loved like a father in silence, remained in the background, because he knew this wasn't a moment of a father being reunited with his daughter. It was the moment the world had to face the truth of the woman they tried to erase, and finally recognize her, not just as a person, but as a symbol. There was no grand ceremony, no fireworks, no post-victory gala, the kind of luxury resorts often throw to worship famous names. Only a single brass plaque was quietly mounted on the cold stone wall of Val d'Orion, beside the summit of Black Vortex. Claire Monroe, world record 147.2, no brand logo, no caption. Just her name standing alone like a truth that needed no explanation. Claire didn't return to the slope the next morning. While the media swarmed with headlines, while the world scrambled to publish think pieces on the miracle girl, and sports analysts rushed to reopen the old doping case, she simply packed her belongings, folded her worn knit hat, tucked it into her bag, and walked away. No farewell, not a single glance back. She didn't need a stage. She didn't need belated recognition. And she certainly didn't need applause from a crowd that once laughed at her, now pretending they never turned their backs. For Claire, true victory was never about having someone pronounce her name correctly on television. It was about having the courage to never mispronounce it to herself. Jason walked beside her, keeping just enough distance so she wouldn't feel protected. He said nothing, because sometimes the best kind of father isn't the one who speaks for you, but the one who stays quiet, so you can speak for yourself with the unshakable presence of who you've become. On social media, they called her a legend. But to Claire, she wasn't becoming one. She was simply becoming human again. Herself. Claire Monroe, the girl who needed no crown, no power, just one mountain, one pair of old skates, and one truth that never wavered. Claire Monroe didn't win with branding or fame. She won with truth and unwavering resolve. This story reminds us dignity doesn't require a crown, only the courage to never bow your head. If you've ever been misunderstood, know this: the right silence can make the whole world stop and listen. Like this story, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Toch Story for more powerful, emotional, and inspiring stories just like this one.